Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Uptown Collective Conversation, our TalkBack. We are so excited to be with you again. And today we're going to be talking about values, our value system, and our actions, and how those things match up if they match, and how that kind of informs our artistry. So we welcome you to the Uptown Collective today. We are a space that embodies the whole artist's mind, body, and spirit. We uphold the values of authenticity, community, support, and creativity. We curate conversations, but we also provide classes and other resources for artists. But if you're not an artist today and you were joining us, that is okay, because the conversation around our values and our actions and those things aligning is really a conversation in a topic that can be, whether you're an artist, whether you're in the professional world, your personal world, it's really something that kind of cross-pollinates all different types of sectors. So before we begin, my sisters are here. We've got Renika Williams and Kimberly Walker. What's up, y'all? How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good.
Hello. Yeah, pretty good over here too.
Good. So before we get started in the conversation, just wanted to give the opportunity to kind of say, hey, like what's going on? You all are full-time artists who also are managing other things. So what's been happening with you as an artist since we've last met in the past couple of months?
Well, I finished season 1 of my first show on HBO Max. Thank you. It's called The Sex Lives of College Girls. It will be out on November 18th, and it's crazy. They released 3 teasers, and I am in 2 of them. I was not expecting to be in anybody's teaser. So that was really cool. And I'm just excited about that.
Yeah, I saw you in the teasers, and it was really cool to watch, especially because of you sharing some of your journey. So it was really exciting to see that for you.
Thanks.
And glad that you can join us today, because we know you're about to get busy with press and all of those things very shortly. So yes. Kimberly, what about you?
I have been laying low a little more, auditioning, not as much as I should, but sometimes. And it's nice to go to callbacks and have them be in person again. That's really exciting. But I did start the Youth Creative Collective, which is an after-school program for tiny tots who are about 4 through 8. Though right now it's raining 4-year-olds. So we focus on creative expression and mindfulness. So that's performing and visual arts, as well as things like meditation, body scans, a lot of imagination work. And I am going to bed a little earlier because 4-year-olds, they've been wearing me out 3.5 hours to 4-year-olds every day.
Oh, that is a long time.
Yes. It's a long time, including my children, who I feel like are just, like the ringleaders of just the non-compliant group. So
we've had a couple of conversations about repercussions and consequences, but everyone benefits from those talks.
Yeah. And then just the reality, and I shared this with Kimberly about just you never being, what kids actually absorb. Because my daughter, I was folding clothes yesterday, and she came in with her calming jar, which is a jar that's supposed to calm you down. And then she was coming in and she said, okay, mommy, breathe in, hold it, breathe out. And so she was leading me through breathing exercises. And then I was like, well, where did you learn that? And she was like, well, Miss Kimberly, at the Dream Center. I said, and when did that happen? And she was like, when I was on timeout. And I was like, well, how did it make you feel? She was like, I mean, it calmed me down, but I don't like being on timeout. But it was the fact that she had the ability to kind of absorb these things. She knew to breathe and how to instruct, and she knew the things. So, at no age, you're never too young to kind of learn these things. So we're grateful that, out of the Uptown Collective, there is this now youth collective where these children are getting these practices that are that are amazing for them. So yes, we're going to get in on this conversation. And if you are here joining us today, make sure you drop your name in the chat. And we're looking forward to hearing from you and engaging with you today. So really, we want to have a conversation around our actions and our value system first and foremost. And really, if you are not sure what personal, we're talking about personal kind of core values. They are like your compass. They are the things that kind of lead you, guide you, and help you as you're going on your day-to-day life. And I don't know that we're always intrinsically we always know what our value system is, but when we know those things, then it helps us to kind of order our lives in a particular way based on our values. And we can really kind of check where we are and who we are by whether our actions are aligning with our value system or not. And so we're going to have a little bit of that conversation. Then we're going to talk about how that informs our artistry. But really, again, values are just something that kind of guide you. They're, authenticity, family. They're like these one word kind of things that help gauge you. But if you don't know what your core values are, we'll also share some tips for how you can identify those. But I'm just curious to Renika and Kimberly, have you ever done like a personal values assessment or have thought about what your core values are? And if you could state what a few of those are, I'd be curious to hear what those are.
Kimberly.
Yeah. I have done a couple of these in the past, but and it's funny what changed and what didn't. But for me, authenticity, honesty, and also joy is a big one. And I love a healthy boundary, but essentially it's, am I a person who does X, Y, Z? I ask myself that sometimes when I'm trying to cultivate more self-discipline. It's like, okay, thinking of where the mountaintop is, where I want to go, who's the sort of person who can do those things? Okay, well, am I doing the things that are going to lead me to where I want to go? So I talk to myself quite a lot. But right, it comes down to being authentic, honest, and sometimes, just joyful while honoring the creative in everyone.
So Joy, you mentioned, what were the other values?
Authenticity. I think I said honesty as well. And I try to push myself to be courageous as well.
Yes. Okay, Renika, what about you?
So I think about this a lot. I'm pretty sure I took one of those tests a long time ago, but I often think about it and have been thinking about it way more ever since like dipping my toes into television, because it seems like the stakes are higher. But I always try to make sure that like I love it, whatever I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Like even in relationships, do I love this relationship? Am I holding on to my self-respect? In regards to work, is it meaningful work? And does it honor my faith as well? Those are my top 4. So, yes.
I think I took one because of my therapist, and I'm a big, proponent of therapy. And I did a values assessment. The last time I did one was in like 2020. And some of the things that came up were like, authenticity, definitely like courage, growth, because, and family. Those were like some of the ones that kind of showed up for me. And so if you're here with us and you are, and you're here, let us know what some of your values are, if you know what those are. And if you don't know how to identify what your personal core values are, please drop that like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And we can talk about that. We can talk about that too. I know there are a lot of different ways to identify your values. I know for me, like my therapist gave me like a list of all these adjectives, and then you have to circle a certain amount of them. And then after you circled, these are the things that like resonate with me, then you kind of group them Like all these things are kind of in the, intimacy box. I think that was another one I had, like that intimacy or like that connection was another one of the values that came up for me. But you kind of group them together, and then you're able to like basically get your core values down to like, between 4 or 6, because 20 is a lot, but 4 through 6 are is a much, manageable number. So, there are lots of different places where you can like go and do values assessments. There's quizzes online, or some people like the more authentic approach, which is not going with any preconceived like adjectives. It's more so like, okay, think about the best experiences you've had, and the people that you admire the most, and what are those people kind of describe who they are, and then you kind of identify the things that you feel around them, and then that kind of also helps you to kind of decide what your value system is and what matters and makes meaning for you. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to say around that?
Well said.
It can be hard though.
It's hard. It's hard.
It is hard to do. It is. But also like I find myself when I don't hold on to my values, then I end up feeling sick, like about doing something or participating in something, like I end up getting mad at myself. Like for instance, like safety is a big thing for me. I think I should have said that. Like if I don't feel safe in a room with people, that's a big thing, like security. Yeah.
And I think too, there's a difference because, right, there's who we are now, and there are values systems or sets that we may have now, but there's also values that are correlated with who we want to be, and being able to identify the difference. Like, so I might identify that this is a person that I want to be. I'm not an honest person now, but I strive to be more honest, right? So we can say that we value that, or that's something that's showing up, but our actions are not quite aligning with that. And then our work is to make sure that we are moving towards the space of being who we say we want to become and who we want to be. And that's kind of the challenge. But really, if we were looking at individuals around us, you might be able to really call out their value system because it shows up in your actions, right? What you value, what you honor, really shows up in how you act and how you show up. So I'm curious if the values that you say that you kind of put forth, authenticity or safety or things, if someone was looking at you and looking at your actions, would they be able to identify that those are actually the values that you uphold for yourself?
I think so.
Yeah, I'd like to so. I would. Recently, well, I think my self-respect was definitely challenged, or could have been challenged if I did not state my boundaries in a situation of what I will and will not do. Like, if you would like me to work with you, I can't do these things. I feel like that would affect my self-respect. And also safety. There was a situation where there was a group of people that I just don't feel safe working with. And I think if I would have worked with them just for the money or the opportunity, I wouldn't feel safe and I would be upset with myself. So I decided not to do a certain thing to protect myself. And I'm proud of myself for that. So I hope that like people see that, and whether honestly, if they don't, they don't. I know it to be true. So do I hope that people see my values when they meet me through my actions? Of course. But if not, like I know what I do, basically.
Yes, and you feel it inside. I mean, it can seem like a minor thing, but there is, for me, I don't want to generalize, there's that sort of tug of like, come on, this isn't you, or this isn't what you want. And you know that. And when I am true to myself and my values, it's just a completely different mindset, but also it feels different in my body. And just as how we treat other people matters, I mean, it matters that we're true to ourselves in those respects, because we're the ones who have to live with our actions. We're the ones who have to live with the words that we speak and the repercussions of the words that we speak. So I mean, good on you for setting boundaries, which you know I love, and protecting your peace and your mind. No, seriously, because there are so many reasons that people can give us why we should leap at certain opportunities. But if it doesn't add up, it doesn't add up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's why having a value system is so important, or knowing what those things are, because it helps you kind of cut through what you should and shouldn't do, especially if you have a difficulty with boundaries. If you're saying that you honor, self-care, but every decision you're making is something that's putting yourself last, then it allows you and it helps you to put a boundary in place that says, like, if this is the value that I uphold, then I can only do things that align with this. And that's like the deeper work that we each have to be able to do to make sure that we're kind of, that alignment taking place. But and it helps you to do the scary things, right? Like if I'm saying that one of the things I want is, to be more courageous, then I can't be mad when all these situations are coming up that require me to utilize that and show that I can be, or we can be courageous. And so I think that's where, again, a value system is helpful, because it's like a compass, and you're able to kind of align what you are doing with your value system. And again, that icky feeling you get, whether it's a literal feeling or whatever type of thing that kind of says, like, you know what, this isn't right, or this is misaligned, or this isn't working for me. It helps you to have something to kind of it's like it gives you measure for how you're, emotional measure, psychological measure for how you are living and ordering your life, and not just for now, but who you want to be, which is key. The thing is super super important. So I'm curious, like, for instance, right, Renika, so we know that you've talked a lot about your faith previously. We've had those conversations, and then you do a show, well, with the title, like, the sex lives of college girls. It's such a long title, I always forget. But the title kind of speaks to what it was, what in it allowed for you to be like, yes, this works with my value system. This doesn't work with my value system. This works with my faith. This doesn't work. And how you kind of came to that decision to be able to do that and be in that space.
Yeah. So one, I think people they entitled it that for a reason. I'll say that, because it's not as raunchy as people think it is because of the title. Can you guys hear me? I feel like I'm sorry. Okay, great. Yeah, it is. First of all, when I read the script, I loved the script because it's a lot about, like, the awkwardness that comes with coming of age, and like how there can be a lack of sex and intimacy and relationship, or there can just be like you're trying something out and it's actually not right for you. And I think for me, first I asked myself, would this affect my self-respect? Would I be doing anything? Honestly, I did that first before faith. The character I am playing is actually queer. But what I believe is that God loves everybody, that he loves us all. And so, like, not everyone may believe that, but I like to tell stories that I feel like need to be told and give a voice to people who don't feel like they have that voice. And I actually think it's very important for me to play a role like this, to say, like, I am a believer. My faith means a lot to me. And I'm still truthfully playing someone who is queer. I felt like there was power in that. And I also prayed about it a lot before I made the decision. And I'm glad that it's in my path. So I actually feel like it's a really cool opportunity to play a character like that and be a person of faith. But as long as I wasn't doing anything that I actually wouldn't do if I were playing someone who was like cis, like, I wouldn't want to do certain things on camera. It actually has nothing to do with her preference of who she dates. Does that make sense? Like, I wanted to honor myself and my body, so I put up boundaries, and luckily they were respected. But those were like a hard nose for me, I had some hard nose, but definitely I I need to get ready to answer that question more often. So thank you for asking me.
No, I think it's a great thing to consider, because any of us in artistry, but other places where you have those choices that you have to make about what you will and kind of what you won't do. There are choices that you can make that can elevate your career, but it's like, to what do you sacrifice on the other end? And that is where a strong value system helps you kind of stay grounded. And for some, their faith as well, because if you have a faith, then if you believe that what is for you, is for you, then if you kind of turn an opportunity down, then you always have then you have, then you know that there's space being made for you and room being made for you in a particular type of way. So I'm seeing a question here that says, I'm loving this conversation. I'm realizing more and more the difference between values versus ethics. All values aren't ethical based on situations, but for you two, what does your ethics play a part in your value system? So your ethics, the notion of like right and wrong, do those play in your value system, or are those kind of separate and apart for you? Your ethics versus your values.
I think they are related, but there's not the overlap, and sort of how they enmesh could be seen as surprising. I mean, Renika, when you were speaking about your character, can I say your character's name? Can that be out there? Because your character's name is Willow, right?
Willow.
Okay, yeah, Willow. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you mentioned that you believe that God loves everybody, I mean, all of the three of us who are Black women are also believers in God, right? And there are a whole lot of people who love God and Jesus and call themselves Christians, and some people have very wildly different views on ways that people are born, or choices that are made, or sins that are decided on, and all of that. And I also think that, some people are born left-handed, some people are born, why would God ever punish something that is not a choice, but is part of who someone is, part of their uniqueness and the genuine expression of who they are? But anyway, I bring that up because that in and of itself, the loudest Christians out there, I think, are often some of the ones who forget who we're actually supposed to be following and how we're supposed to be treating each other. And that I think a bunch of people do a whole lot of judging that is not for us to do about stuff that doesn't warrant it. And so even you sharing how God views creation, that might have surprised someone, because there are so many assumptions, right? And, this, given what I just said, might come out of left field in terms of roles. And Des, I don't know if this is going to be a question later, but I told this to someone, I think it was over dinner or drinks a while ago, talking about what kinds of characters would you play? Would you never play? And their face was kind of odd when I said, I think I would play a demon before I'd play a devil worshiper. And that opened up a question of like, what? Because I was breaking it down into, things like good omens, and how you can have a part that is not poking fun at faith, but you could view a character as a character. And that's an extreme example. But everything digital is forever, more or less, right? So any role that I do play, I have to be okay with how I'm representing myself as well as how I'm representing that character.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, people might ask you about things, people might make assumptions based on the work that you've done. I know where my hard no's are and what my boundaries are. And if there's something that would make me feel like I'm compromising my integrity, that to me is that's a sacrifice that I don't feel like I have to make, because the things that are for me are for me. And I don't believe in living from that scarcity place, right?
And
if I turn this down, there's no opportunity.
That has to do with faith as well. Like, that's also a different way in to look at faith. I agree with that. I felt like it came my way for a reason because it was for me, right? I actually believe that if it weren't for me, I wouldn't get it, you know? And just like you said, I got an audition to play a demon worshiper, like a devil worshiper.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a no for me, you know? So like, you know, your heart knows, I know my heart knows. And like, to me, that's all that matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe some people will side eye me or judge me for playing someone queer, but like, to me, like, she's a human being that I want to tell that story, you know?
And I think it speaks to how your values change over time, right? And who you are. And so that your value system has to also evolve with the person that you are becoming. And so I was actually talking to one of my best friends, and we've been friends for 20 plus years. And we were having the conversation. It was his 39th or his 40th birthday, and we were talking about something, I don't know, and then we had this conversation because we were recalling conversations where 20 years ago, and I don't have any bones about sharing kind of my evolution. I've said, I was a Republican at one point because as my faith understood it, that's what my faith, I felt like Christians were Republicans. I voted for Bush very early on because, but I remember us having these conversations about like living in California, like, do you vote, let's say Prop 8, which was, because it was like, well, this says this over here, but we're supposed to think this way, and the wrestling. And I think that's what your value system and your actions are always about, is this ongoing wrestling with who you are, who you're wanting to become. And some conversations I can't believe I had 20 years ago, but that was who I was and where I was. And I was doing my best to honor who I was at that moment. And so I think for any of us too, it is not judging who we are in that moment in that way, but taking an assessment, a true assessment of that, knowing that we are going to evolve, that we are going to change, that we are going to grow, and we are going to shift. There were things back then I was like, I can't do this because A, B, or C. And now I'm like, I don't care. Like, fight me. So, it's definitely, it has definitely changed as my value system has changed. But I think the important thing is to always be in communication with self, not with others, but with self about what those things are. Because sometimes we get with other folk, we begin to align ourselves with their value systems and what they believe and what they think. And we're not being, like we said, authentic to ourselves. We're trying to fit in or be accepted or not be rejected. And then you still wind up kind of being backwards and kind of twisted all out of place. So the importance that your value system is solely based on you. They are personal core values, and they're not for judgment. They're not right. They're not wrong. And being okay with just sitting in whatever your values are, just you alone. And then, trusting that, again, as you align yourself with those things, that you will find folk and, a village who also, who will uphold those things. And sometimes, again, it's not something that's right there in front of you. Sometimes you got to seek those things out. If you want to be a millionaire and you got all brokenaires in your circle, that's okay. You got to go find some millionaires, or you got to find whatever. Brokenaires is not, whatever. But
I love it.
You coined it here.
Brokenaires coined here. You've heard it first here. You have to be able to find those spaces and be vulnerable enough to find the places and the spaces that will uphold who you want to be, and be willing to sacrifice a lesser version of yourself for who you actually kind of want to be.
Ooh, I love how you put that. You have to be willing to sacrifice a lesser version of yourself to become who you want to be. That's so true. Oh my gosh. It's one of the meditations I listened to last week, one day, it was about future you care. That was more in the immediate future, like doing something that myself from a week from now will appreciate, that will be good, that will make me, healthy, well provided for, and all of that. But I think future you care can certainly extend, beyond. It's basically just acting with integrity, doing what's going to keep me healthy, happy, whole, and sane in any way, and behaving in a way that aligns with my values is certainly one of those things, as well as lots of cups of tea and plenty of water and going to bed before midnight.
And I think we do some of these things that are like super external facing, but what if we turn those like vision boards, right? Like I'm looking, I have a vision board right here, and all of these things are like goals I want to hit and things I want to, and normally they're very like external. They're not bad. They're just like you're setting that. But how many of us do, what if we were doing the internal visioning? Like right from the inside out, where it's like, how do I envision myself as a human being? Because if you're working from that, how do I see myself in that way? And you're doing that work, then I fully believe that, other things will come. I had a pastor that said sometimes, you'll get into rooms, that your character can't keep you. And so, we may get the opportunities, we may get the things on our vision boards, we may get these things, but if our character is not in a particular place, we will like squelch those things and the earth underneath it very, very quickly. And so the notion that if we're doing it from the inside out, right, then the other things will align themselves and come based on who we are and what we are really willing, what we are actually able to handle at that time. Yeah. So that internal, that's what, that's why you'd be having, scarves on and no edges, because when you're doing the work, it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. And I was reading something that said there was a therapist who was saying, like, I actually understand why a lot of people don't engage in the deep work, even their therapists themselves, of like going through the process, because just the process of having to kind of face yourself and face these things and just being honest is
scary.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's scary.
It's scary. It's definitely scary.
Yeah. Recently somebody asked me, she was like, "Are you just not afraid anymore?" And I was like, I'm afraid of many things, and I think that goes back to Des, you were talking about growth and courage, I think, right? About your core values. And like, I think the hard part is like there are many hard parts, but like learning how to not let it stop you, even when it's scary. Like, it's always scary. The inner work is scary. Auditions are scary, like going to a callback in person after a pandemic is scary, or in a pandemic, excuse me. We're in a pandemic. But like, I'd rather do it scared because I'm actually more afraid of not fulfilling my life's purpose.
Yes.
That frightens me even more than something in this moment that is scary. And not doing the work on myself. Like, we all have family members or like friends who you can literally see, right? Like, they probably need to work on something. They probably need a therapist, right? And I'm more afraid of like not doing the work on I don't want to be 80 years old and never dealt with some things, and never became my full self. So the reason I go to therapy is so that I can increase my emotional intelligence and like attack my mess head on. I'm more afraid of not doing that, even if it's ugly and even if it's hard. Shout out to the fact that you let me have your therapist.
And yes, I'm not sharing my therapist with anybody else because now I can't get an appointment.
Oh, I got a recurring appointment.
Right.
You got to snatch it up. You got to snatch it up.
And so, yes. Yeah, but I mean, it's, we forget that, they talk about, when you're in scary situations, there's flight or, I can't think of it. Flight or fight. Sorry. flight or fright?
Fight, flight, or freeze. But yes.
There's flight or
There's more than one? I mean,
there's
fight
three,
or flight, but there's also
fight or flight. Like,
or
you fight it
freeze.
or you flight, but the other one is freeze, right?
Mhm.
And so that's where a lot of us, we think about the fighting or the flighting. Like, we know something comes on head on and we're ready to fight it. Some of us, we get in the corner and we're like, bow, 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 you know, or we just run away from it. But we forget that other, like, you know, that freezing, which like a deer in the headlight, where things come and we just find ourselves stuck, right? And we're just there, and it's just there, and it's you know, dooming. And that's why I think that the value system helps you in those motions, those times too, because when you're unsure of, when you're talking about honoring your best self, right, or honoring who you are, when you have a value system, you can look at the situation and be like, you know, what is going to require me, what choice is going to require me to act upon these values that I say are, you know, core to my life. And so you know, then that might be like, okay, if I'm looking at courage, you know, that might be the thing that needs to step up. Or, you know, if I'm saying that it needs to be authenticity, you know, then that might be the thing that needs to step up. But sometimes, you know, we are paralyzed because we have too many choices and too many options. But core values help you actually eliminate. It's like multiple choice. Nope, that doesn't work. B, D, and C. These are actually the real options that I have, that are going to allow me to be this version of myself and to step into this. And I find that often, more times than not, it's hard. It's not the easy choice. It's not the comfortable choice. It's not the fun. I was like, man, growth ain't fun. Like, it's kind of like, this isn't fun so much, right? But it helps you. And so I'm curious about those who are here. Do you feel like your actions, those who are joining us too, are aligning with your values, if you have your values? And again, if you're here, the chat is the way that we're not on a room, that we can communicate. So if you know what some of your values are, please drop those in the chat. And also, if you feel like your actions are aligning with your chat, some of the values, if you just joining us, we said that we uphold are like authenticity. We talked about, you know, courage. We talked about, you know, intimacy, or versions of like relationship, joy, safety. Those are some of the ones that we uphold. But what are some of the values that are important to you? So we want to hear that. And while you're putting those in the chat, I want to know about maybe some ways that you all have undermined your values through your actions.
Two things, and then I will think of a response to what you just asked. But Renika, what you said about, no, I'm still scared, but I'd rather act scared, really resonated with me, because I do firmly believe that, I mean, growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone, but part of my email signature is just this image. It says, it's okay to be afraid, do it anyway. Because if we wait till we're braver, until we're more courageous to do things, we'll be sitting around frozen all the time, doing absolutely nothing. So yeah, it's pushing through it is where the victory is, over the things that scare us. And then there'll be something else that scares us, or, you know, the same thing in a different iteration. And Desiree, I actually feel like, yeah, it's not fun all the time, but knowing what my boundaries are and what my hell yeses versus my hard no's are is freeing, because it actually simplifies things. I can look at a breakdown and be like, nope, I don't even want to read that script, because I know by the character description, that's not for me. Or, you know, sometimes through a friend of a friend who's worked with somebody, or, you know, people's reputations precede them, the great ones and the bad ones. And there are some people I just don't want to spend however many weeks or months working with some folks. It's the way that I won't go on a second date with a guy if he's rude to the server. I'm not going to work with certain people based on how they treat some people, based on how they speak of people. If you're only kind to people that you think are above you or at your level, or because you want something from them, that's not actual kindness. And I can't be bothered with that. So
Absolutely.
there are just some people that make it easy for me to keep them out of my face, basically.
Yeah. There was a moment I undermined or almost undermined my values. And it literally made me sick to my stomach, even thinking about the fact that I was like possibly about to do something, like that I would like not feel okay with doing. But so long story short, we've all talked about this before. I think we talked about it on like the first segment, where like I wasn't auditioning at all before last year. Like it was just like really hard for me. I didn't have like good representation. It was non-existent. And so when it came to having a manager who could get me in any room, it was like, oh my God, I can't say no. That's being ungrateful, which is like, no, I like learned that that's actually not true. But I'm like, oh, I'm showing gratitude for like this gift, this blessing that God gave me by taking all of these auditions. Something comes around, I'm not going to name the show. A very popular show came around and they asked me to audition, and I was like, ooh. And I was like, I'm actually not okay. Like, I'm actually not okay with doing that. And she was just like, but it would be really good money. And I was like, okay. And I auditioned for it, right? And as soon as I sent it, I was like, and I was like, no, it's fine. They're not going to take me seriously. Then I got a call back. And I said, I can't do it. Sorry, I can't do it. I'm not doing it. Like, I was so close to doing it for the money because it's a popular show. And it literally made me sick to my stomach thinking that I would do something that I actually am not comfortable doing. And I don't judge other actors that do those things on screen. More power to you. But like, I know that would be out there forever. And I also know it's just not something that I want to do, like, as a woman, like as a human being, like.
And when you don't have, when you're not always true to your values, it will cause you to think about taking shortcuts, right, for an end goal that may not be your process or your journey, right? So I think about, I'm like, I guess I'm technically from my age, like a millennial, but I feel like I'm like an older millennial, right? Like I remember I had a pager and like the Zach Morris phone. Like I remember like not having computers. I played Oregon Trail. So I'm like right on the cusp of, girl, you not really a millennial. And so I have like this very love and hate relationship with like social media. And I'm just using that as an example where it's like, yes, you've seen this vehicle being used where people like you get one viral video and it is it for you. And as you're struggling through whatever your artistry is, that screenwriting and trying, they're like, yeah, these like I could really focus on like going viral or doing this thing on social media, but I don't really like it, that much. Or, I like to look at it, but I don't always like to post. And so you begin to sometimes measure what you're doing by making those choices or not making those choices. And I just realized, like, I get that this is an avenue for some folk, and I will share here or there. Like sometimes I share every day, and then some days you won't see me for a month or two or whatever. But I just was like, that's not the lane for me. Even if it's a lane for somebody else, and being able to say that and be okay and not, again, feel like you're going to miss something because you're not. And then when you, again, with your value system, it also helps you look at people who you emulate, right? Or who you like, or who you want to be like, or who you aspire to. And it was like, yeah, but they didn't, they already had this thing going, and then they got to social media because then people care. Like they weren't trying to build this thing up from the trenches. And so being able to align yourself with those who you're like, I really like this person. I really value who they are, and that is like someone that I may want to be like, also kind of helps you make those choices and decisions about time. Because it's like, yeah, I could spend all this time building up social media, or I could write a script. Like,
right. But that has nothing to do with you being an elder millennial. Let me just tell you.
An elder millennial?
Yeah, I made that up because your last name and
I get it.
Elder on the cusp, but you're also on the
That's
cusp.
clever and disrespectful.
You said it yourself. But I actually feel the same way about social media. I feel like I do it because I have to, and it sucks. Like it sucks. Actually, I had someone actually DM me, a friend of mine, not mine. Yes, mine. Yes, I'm confused. She DM'd me and she was like, you should start making funny videos on TikTok and YouTube to get your career popped off. And I said, I have a degree. Like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no judgment for anybody else, but I just don't want to do that. That's not my lane. I don't want to be the person trying to make funny videos and make it go viral. I just don't. Like, I'd rather be doing a play, and like, because I love it, and like, if something happens because of that play that unfolds into something else, that's great. But like, I'm the same way. So elder millennial, you are not the only one.
I feel you both, my sisters, on that front. I have a small amount of actor guilt about that too, because I will go weeks without posting anything on anything. And then I might open Instagram 1 or 2 days a week to look at cute dogs. Like, honestly, I just want to see dogs being adorable and hilarious. But yeah, then there's that, for me, it's not so much about trying to do something and go viral, but it's like, well, you have to post every day on all of your accounts. You have to have content out there. People have to be able to find you. Casting has to be able to see you. They have to put it. I'm just like, it's not something I think about on a regular basis. It would be incredibly inauthentic, which is one reason I know I am supposed to be doing it, to like, okay, let me schedule it in. Oh, let me just take some freaking photos just so I can put it on Instagram. Like, when it occurs to me, sometimes I'll put something. But no offense to people that share their every waking moment online. That is simply not for me. Not everything is meant for public consumption. But yeah, I just can't be bothered. And I do hate, I'm kind of recalcitrant in that way. I'm like, no, I don't want to. You don't have to. Until it's in my contract that I have to post a certain number of things on social media, I'm not going to do it. And even then I'll be rolling my eyes.
I hate that it's going in that direction, though. Like, that they're starting to look at how many followers you have.
Oh yeah, how many followers you have.
If they want to cast you or not. Like, it sucks. They're basically using your followers to sell the movie.
Yeah, it's free advertising.
Yeah,
100%.
It's insane.
Well, then it's only gonna be the Holy Spirit reading my stuff, and then that's okay. So. Because again, your value system and your whys, you have to have strong whys and understand, because when you don't have a strong why for what you're doing, then as the wind blows, as the storms get crazy, as it gets rocky, then you're going to be kind of tossed to and fro without, an understanding of what, your why and like the long game and, kind of like so I think I'm a person who like, I kind of can see the long game, in something and just be like, all right, I'm gonna rock this out for like, for the marathon, not the sprint, and be okay with that.
I have a question for you.
Me?
That's right. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Am I allowed to ask you a question?
Sure.
As a writer, do you often feel like you have to put limits on what you write because of your ministry, or do you just let yourself be an artist in that way?
No, I'm an artist, because I feel like as a pastor, there are many ways that I do have to sometimes censor myself that, if you know me, are not my personality. So I like to be, like, I would say this, and this is how, but in writing, I don't have to have those censors, right? Censored, because they're characters. And I also very much am about, like you said, telling stories that are not the stories that I tell. So we're gonna talk. I'll write about church, but it's not gonna be the church of TBN, right? It's gonna be the church of like my experience, what I've seen, what I understand, and what I know, what is nuanced, what is, complex. And so, no, I feel like writing gives me a freedom that I don't have in other spaces. And I actually think that writing was kind of the impetus to me responding to things that I wasn't able to sometimes otherwise respond to in my own, in my own personal life. And so, yeah, like I'm, they're characters, and
I love that. They are, and they're telling a whole complete
story. Right. And so that is what that's what I love about, I don't want to be an actress. I don't want to be in front of the camera. I don't want to do none of that, but just the ability to kind of get behind there and work through the complexities of people. And that's when you were talking about, like playing a demon or playing very much like, I was watching Cruella. Like we watched it 500 times, the Cruella,
yeah, I haven't seen it
because my kids wanted to see it. And so they're so young that they think like the real movies are like the real one. So they're like,
oh, bless their heart,
Aladdin, not the cartoon. And I'm like, that's not the real one.
You don't even know. They don't even know.
And I got we were watching Cruella, and I was so obsessed with the fact that they kind of took like the villain and humanized them. And so I like shows like even like the show Luther and these shows that are like these human factors of people. And I think when I think about people, nobody is all good. Nobody is all bad. Like we are, we're both.
We're complex.
So being able to find that complexity in people, like even the greatest of people, is something that I really care about, because I even see that in myself. It's like, you ain't, you've got a lot of work to do, right? So it's the ability to do that and show real people that I appreciate as a writer. And so I think like even with me writing Righteous, I think what people might think the script is versus if they read the script, they're like, oh, okay. Like, so my writing is very probably different than what you might perceive it to be.
I love that. I love it. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't edit yourself.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's power in that story, right? Somebody may resonate with that because it's not what the church's idea of righteous, what that story should be like about. You know what I'm saying? Somebody may connect to that and be like, wow, like I see myself in one of those characters.
Yeah. And so even like I think, I have a script that's a finalist in the Nashville Film Festival. So hopefully we'll see this week if I won, or if I'm going to be who's this? Susan Lucci? Wasn't she on the soap operas and she keeps getting nominated, but she doesn't win? It All My Children, like this. I'm aging myself if you watch soap operas. So it's another script, but yeah, like that is, it's a script about like four Black women who are over the age of 60, who basically move in together to be roommates. Like it's like Golden Girls meets like Living Single, because I was sick of seeing where like Black people don't get to age, Black women don't get to age in Hollywood. It's like, oh, you're 40 and you stay 40 forever.
No, that's so important. That is so important.
So, but they're very like, you have the ultra spiritual one, you got the queer one who just got released from prison, you got the military. So there are these very 4 different characters.
Oh my gosh.
Move in together. But that's the type of stuff that I want to
get that on the air.
Stuff that like, I'm like, yo, what happened if, Living Single? What if they were like 60? Who would they be? And I think that's important in anything that we're doing, anything that we're choosing, that again, it aligns with our values, but also with our passions. It's making sure that there's making space for who we are. Even when I'm preaching, it's my preaching. Like if nobody else is there, I'm like, this is for my life, right? Because it's authentic. And so that, I think that is like last week when I preached about being tired, because I'm tired. So it's like it has to come from an authentic place. I think when you're not authentic, when you're not aligning yourself with values, like people can see it like right away when you're like, oh, you're just doing that for whatever reason, but it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Desiree, I texted you. I said, that sermon, at some point last year, I won't say exactly what I wrote, but I said, I don't want to see the word resilience. I don't want to hear the word resilience. I'm tired of people asking me to be resilient. Yeah. So that spoke to me. And for a pastor, for any human being, but for a Black woman to just be able to say, no, I'm tired. Like I'm not Superwoman. I'm not magical. I'm a human being who is tired. Mm-hmm. And has several reasons. I very much appreciated that. And again, it's about the authenticity.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Because people see, like, I think a lot of people, as we know, have a lot of church hurt, right? Like, for whatever reason from their childhood. But when they hear messages like that from somebody who looks like them, someone who is their age, you know what I'm saying? It makes people want to connect to whatever your message is, whether it's from your script or from your message, like as a pastor, like that's what this is about, not being holier than thou, in my opinion. Right. And I think that's what we as artists can do in our work. Like, even if it's not an official like sermon, like we can make people see themselves, help people to see themselves.
Yeah. And as we wrap up, I think that's the value system, right? Your value system goes with you no matter what space you're in. And it shouldn't be something you put on and off like a costume. So if I say that I'm authentic, I can't say I'm going to be authentic in my job, but not be authentic in my home, right? Or authentic here, or, whatever the thing is. Now, the reality is that it may be difficult to exude that value. You don't exude that value equally in all spaces for whatever reasons. Your experience means that you may have a value, but it's harder for it to show up in different places. It doesn't mean that you don't do the work to make sure that it's putting yourself, forth. And so, like I said, authenticity is mine. So I can't say like, oh, I'm going to preach, but I'm going to be, I'm going to be fake over here, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to write, but I'm not going to be authentic to this. You have to be able to, bring whatever those values are with you. As things that are intrinsic to you, because really they are. Your values are really coming from an intrinsic, like deep place. If you're really doing the work to identify them, they're not things that you put on and take off like costumes. And so I think that that's really core to who you are. So we hope that you've do you have any other last kind of, words, thoughts, Renika or Kimberly, as we get ready to close this up?
I'm here. One of the reasons I'm here, that we're all here, is to be who we are and to put into the world the things that only we can, because of our experience, because of our points of view. And I mentioned that authenticity is one of my values, but and I do think it shows up in a lot of ways, but essentially, whatever your individual values are and ethics, if you're still working all of that out, I actually don't think it's as hard to figure out as it might seem.
Go ahead and finish. I'll get the question. Go ahead.
Just that, well, I don't want to say how it is for other people. For me, I know when something doesn't align, and I don't like that feeling. So I strive to live in a way in which I am constantly in or seeking realignment, like in alignment, or am actively realigning myself and evolving. And, some values have stayed the same. Others, my understanding of them has changed as I've grown and evolved.
So there's a question here. It says, Renika alluded to the show that she said, nah, I can't. Is there any roles that you passed on in the past that you now feel like would be okay? So something you may have said no to in the past that now you would be like, where you are now with your value system, you might accept, or a topic to write about. Is there anything you have passed on in the past that you would now feel like would be okay with you because of the different value system or judgment, or even a character you've seen someone else portray?
as of right now in this moment, no. I actually feel really good about there were 3 things in the past year and a half that I said a hard no to, and I still don't think they're okay for me personally. I feel really good about it. I actually feel confirmed that I made those decisions. So not right now, but maybe in 10 years, I might be like, girl, you would have been okay to be on that pole. I think not. So that's just me.
Right. There's something that a couple of years ago, a show that I wished I hadn't done after I'd signed a contract. I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but it wasn't worth it for a variety of reasons. But I know people that had worked on it in various capacities before and had all these wonderful experiences. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then I dove in as well. And then I wanted out, but I had already signed a contract. And for me, it was FOMO that actually governed me even going and auditioning. Like, oh, well, I don't want to not do it because so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so had such a great, time. But it also, I don't usually make fear-based decisions. So why did I then? So of course it follows that I regretted not spending that time in a way that would have been more fruitful or restful. So that's sort of the inverse of your question, Alexis, but I have learned from that experience, and it has made me more selective about the who and the what beyond my it's added a hard no, if that makes sense.
All the greats are selective.
I think that there are things, though, when you think about your value system, and then Tony was asking about ethics, and to Alexis's question, there were things that I turned down. And the only reason I regret or might have said would say yes now when I said no was because my yes wasn't my yes. It was a yes for others. It was because of, well, I'm a this or whatever the title is, or you should do this, or you shouldn't work with these type of people. It shouldn't. So even though my personal value system was like, no, this is a great human being. It doesn't matter what other titles, things, ways in which they identify, because of where I was, I felt like those external things and how I was going to be judged or the pressure that I was going to get made me turn down some opportunities where even my personal thing was like, well, I don't really have a problem doing A, B, or C, but I better not for the appearance. And I know we all kind of have to make those choices. Like in any given thing, I might want to do A, B, or C, and there's something that comes along with my title or my responsibility. And those are choices, but it wasn't that. It was that I kept finding myself kind of, again, sacrificing my own self, my own beliefs, my own value system over for the sake of what others were telling me that I should or shouldn't do. And that's the only reason why I regret it, because it wasn't a true yes. It wasn't a true, like Shonda Rhimes has a book like The Year of Yes. It wasn't a true yes or a true no. It was one that was undergirded in other people's opinions, thoughts, and their viewing of me. And it wasn't something that if I just had to stand in my alone, that I would have made the same choice.
That's real. I definitely feel the same way about the title of my show. Like, my dad is a minister, and, my mom is the woman that she is, and I love both my parents very much. They didn't, my dad was like, oh, this is great. My mom was like, the sex lives of college girls, what are the people at church going to say? And honestly, I was like, respectively, I don't care, because it's a comedy and they should watch it because it's not what they think it is. And even if it was, it's my decision, and I'm an adult. I think a lot of people think, how people back home can still think that you're 16 and you're not, like, you're pushing 30. Let's be real. So I feel the same way. And I hear you on that, because there was a second that I was like, should I make this no? That's not really my no. And it's based on what other people say, or think. So I feel you.
So if we don't have any other things that folks are dropping in the chat, we'll give you a moment to do that as we wrap up. But if you have questions or comments, please feel free to drop those in. We thank you for joining us today. Again, we are a space, we are for artists, but often there are folks who are not artists who can glean from whatever we are discussing and what we are doing. We do have a couple of opportunities and classes coming up that we want to let you know about. One, we have, if you are an actor, if you are someone who is thinking about pursuing acting, so not me, we have a self-tape class coming up, how to do a great self-tape with Casting Society of America. If you don't know who CSA are, they are like the folk who hire everyone for shows. So you're going to be on with these casting agents who are actively casting folks, and they're going to give you tips about how to do these self-tapes, which is just a reality if you're an actor, of what you have to do to audition. And then they'll break you up into smaller rooms where they will give you feedback. So this is a great opportunity to maybe make a connection, make a relationship, to do the hard thing, to do the thing that might be scary, but enacting that courage and that authenticity. So that class is actually next Monday, October 4th. You can go to dreamcenterharlem.org to sign up for that. If you are also an entrepreneur, then we have a class called Navigating Entrepreneurship During COVID, which will be taking place the following Monday on October 11th. That will actually be an in-person class, small groups of people. But you'll have the opportunity to talk about what it means to be navigating being an entrepreneur during COVID. You can sign up for that tomorrow. We have with a career coach, how to leverage and expand your market. So if you're not a great networker, I actually personally hate networking. It really makes my stomach hurt. And if you're like me, or you have trouble like figuring out how you expand and leverage your market, then again, that is a class that might be for you. So please go to our website and check them out. Also, we're going to be dropping monthly blogs beginning in October. We're going to start doing in-person table reads. So if you're a writer, an artist who is wanting to workshop your work, we're going to begin to offer up those opportunities for you to do that in front of a live audience. So we're excited about everything that's to come. We're excited to be with you today. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. You said it was a great conversation tonight, enjoyable and relatable. We're glad. You said, Kwame, you're definitely not an artist, but the discussion was extremely relevant and insightful. Thank you. God bless you as well. And we are super excited about what's to come. So we look forward to seeing you the next time. We will be doing a conversation in November, and we're going to be talking about how to navigate the holiday blues, which, whether you're an artist or not, is something that is real. Getting sad, the holidays aren't a happy season for everybody. And so how we navigate the holidays, how we navigate that as artists, how we navigate some of the blues that kind of come with certain seasons in our lives, and how we kind of press through and persevere through those things. So thank you so much again. Have a great evening.